Welcome back, Ganges. The cycle of life and death continues. The battle to do what we have set out to do against ourselves also continues. So, at the end of the day, it truly is a mind game. And I'm sitting here and I'm thinking, I am a worthy opponent. I am both the beast and the hero, which is very interesting. So it is just very interesting. So I realize now the only way, I guess I realize now I truly am the only thing in my way. So that's kind of the worst. Maybe that is flames, but maybe that's also the worst. So yeah. So that being the case, the only thing left to do is to bolster our mental prowess. But yeah, basically this comes from, I've been reading a lot of, I say a lot, but it's been quite a few. There's something very interesting about addiction memoirs, and I'm not exactly certain what it is, but there's something really interesting about them. There's just something really interesting. I think there's an angle where a lot of these books have, there's a period of downward spiral, but also of like knowing, there's a knowing of the downward spiral that's very interesting. But also, throughout the whole book, and pretty much just the process of recovery, it's just about battling one's mind. And for some reason, there seems to be a lot of wisdom in a lot of, pretty much all of them that I've read so far. It really just comes down to a battle of the mind. And I'm not trying to make any analogy between addiction and LeetCode. Definitely nothing there. I think the only thing that is interesting to me is how much everything is just about getting out of your own way. So, and it's just these books are just really interesting to me right now. So maybe I'll add a thing to the description of what I'm reading right now, and maybe we'll all have some book recommendations. But there's just something really interesting about them. So that being the case, yeah, we're making good progress on mediums. I'm glad we actually took that detour to do a whole bunch of easies, because for some reason there's like a dance or a performative aspect of getting an understanding of the problem in the beginning. Like, okay, they're wording it this way. Some problems are, we're going to describe exactly what to do, and the process of describing to you exactly what to do is actually more confusing than just giving me the problem statement, or working through the examples, or modifying test input to figure out what they actually want from you, clarifying undefined questions. I feel like there's a lot of that dance that I feel like I'm much more comfortable with after doing all the easies. That being the case, I feel like that's part of the reason why we've been able to kind of cook the last couple mediums. But mediums tend to range just like easies tend to range. So hopefully going forward we'll be entering the period of cook, where we will begin to cook nonstop. But yeah, so hopefully that's where we get, but it remains to be seen. I think we're going to reach some medium soon where it's just going to be like, oh man, we're going to spend a couple weeks on this. But I'm actually fine with it. I think in the past when I was doing the mediums, I felt like, oh man, I'm doing this. I kind of wish I was doing easies right now just to ease my cognitive load. And now that we've done that, I feel like I can kind of just do the mediums without constantly thinking about X, Y, and Z. That being the case, oh yeah, this is why, oh yeah, I'm bouncing around. This is why I was going to talk about the addiction memoirs. I think what's cool about them is that they always come down to like like just not even willpower, but just the ability for the human mind to remold itself. And also what people are willing to do for the chemical dependency. It's actually pretty crazy, and it's just really interesting because I think there's something about these books that are just innately human, and I guess it never feels that far from home. I'm not exactly certain why, but I think we can just relate. It's hard to talk about this stuff without trying to make it seem like without making it seem like I'm trying to say that I understand these people, because I've never done what they've done, but there is something innately human about their journey that you can just relate with. And I'm not exactly certain what it is, but there's just always, I think that in the books, I think I just figured it out. In the books, there's always just a hint of realism, but also just relatability in some of the few lines that the people say that, I don't know, I feel like I can relate with. That being the case, there's a battle or a war against our cerebellums and our brainstems to keep us locked into the zonking machine and scrolling forever. And I think maybe that's why it hit so close to home, because half the times some of the stuff they're saying, I'm like, okay, I feel like this. I'll be like, oh, I felt like this about League, or I felt like this about X, or I felt like this about that, and it's just really interesting. But I don't think, well, yeah, none of these things are as bad as actual hard drugs, but it's just an interesting thing. I guess what I'm trying to say, I think I figured out what I'm trying to say. In addiction memoirs, there just seems to be a lot to learn from people who have kind of lived some of the hardest and worst parts of life, and also the human psyche. And I just feel like there's always some value to be extracted in seeing how they navigate quitting or not doing the hardest thing, not doing the thing their brain is literally chemically forcing them to pretty much want to do. So I think that's just interesting. And yeah, it kind of draws some lines to the attention war we're currently having. So who knows how we'll get there, but there's a really good video on YouTube. It's not supposed to be like deep or anything, it's just funny. But I think it's like from one of those people who uses like the zoomer and doomer meme faces to like edit stuff together. But it's about how in the future you're given AI tokens, and these AI tokens pretty much can create any world experience, whatever you want, and you experience it for a little bit. And basically this person is working at work, their eyes are zonked out, their blacks of their eyes, you can see the red on their corneas. I mean, the posture is bad. You get the vibe that this person's world is dystopian, but their life is also very bleak. And then they finish work and they get 5 AI tokens, and then they go home and they're just like their face changes from just absolute despair to like euphoric, like overindulgence. And I don't know, there's something, it's probably funny because there's some truth there, but it's also just interesting, probably because it's social commentary. I think we're just talking about nonsense, but fortunately we have people who never talk nonsense on our channel, and those people live in the comments, and so they're here to guide us back to a world that makes sense. We have a comment here from Yash Solanki, which is actually a pretty cool name. Finally, someone doing challenges in JSTS. Facts! Let's go. This is the superior language. When will the community learn? I mean, okay, it's clear that Python is the ideal programming language, given all the, interview language, given all the built-in data structures, readability, so on and so on. But I like JavaScript, and TypeScript is kind of fire, bro. And we have no built-in data structures, besides a few. And then we have T. Wong, part-time author, entrepreneurial, genius, visionary, computer toucher, and an even better commenter. LC medium can range a fair bit. Some mediums can get really challenging. Facts. I'm hoping we stay on the easy side of the algorithm for now. I hope so. Finally into the big boy league. Had to. We had to. We started cooking. We started cooking the easies, and then it had to be done. It was actually hard to keep doing the easies because me brain need challenge. Yeah, I don't know what it was. Something about the easies. Once we got the hang of it, it actually became really hard to do easies over and over again. So maybe that's the grind part of it. But I definitely like the challenge, and so need to spice it back up. Interestingly enough, even though we have other stuff to do, I'm starting to think that I kind of want to start doing longer sessions again, because the meetings are starting to get me excited. So we definitely need to add some sort of challenge aspect to it. There's not much we can do. I don't think we can stop doing LeetCode, but we can do something to spice it up, to spruce it up a little bit. But I think we have that challenge today because we have threesome closest, which I presume will be moderately difficult. That being the case, if you're interested in something like this, you should join the Hyperbolic Coding Chamber Discord, where we have hundreds of thousands of people joining every single day who are showing me the way to the future. So we have tons of people in Discord who are helping us, and that's a feel strong, man. That being the case, I think this is the wave, and I think we're going to jump into the session. We're probably going to do 30 minutes. So we have given an integer array nums. So we have an integer array nums of length n and an integer target and an integer target. Find 3 integers and nums such that the sum is closest to target. You may assume that each input, return the sum of the 3 integers. You may assume that each input would have exactly 1 So I think you could do this in n cubed time, but they probably won't allow us to do it. But let's make sure we understand the problem. Target is 1, the closest you can get is 2. I wonder what you would do if there were multiple closest. Oh, each input would have exactly 1 solution, so that's nice. And the closest we can get is 0. So I feel like you could do this in n cubed time. Right? Couldn't we just... I'm thinking we could just try and add them all together and check the difference. We'll keep track of the smallest, we'll keep track of the closest number based on the difference of it to target. We can get the difference of the number to target by taking the absolute value of the number subtracted by target. I think we should just keep track of the closest number, since we can always calculate the difference. That being the case, we always want to take the number closest to target. So I think the number, we'll say our sum is going to start at infinity, right? And at the end, we'll return sum. And I guess you could call it closest sum. I think we have to find 3 integers. Can you reuse integers? It looks like you probably can't. So we'll say if I does not equal j, and j does not equal k, and k does not equal I. They're all different. Right, then we're going to want to calculate the sum. The sum is going to be nums sub I plus nums sub j plus nums sub k. Once we have the sum, we're going to want to keep the number closest to target. The way we keep the number closest to target, we'll have to know the distance from the number to target. So say if math.absolute value of target minus sum is less than math.absolute value of closest sum minus target, right? Then we'll say closest sum is equal to this new sum. I feel like this makes sense. So if all the numbers are different, we'll add them up, and then we'll want to take the number that has the smallest distance to target. We can get that by taking the absolute value of the difference. Probably have to make this target minus closest sum. Actually, you get the same number either way, I think. There's no way they allow this though, because this would be like n cubed time. I'm expecting TLE. Okay. So we have TLE. How can we speed this up? Can we do n squared? Right now we're checking every pair of numbers with every other pair. Three sum closest. Given an integer array nums of length n and an integer target, find three integers in num. maybe we can trade space. I mean, time for space. Can we save? Can we save? Can we save any? Can we save any time? I mean, can we? Can we save any time? Can we save any data and then recalculate it? What if you... This one, That one you just add. I'm trying to think we could treat it like it's two sum. if it's two sum, the problem is we're looking for an approximation. If we did a binary search for every number, I think we should, it would be log of n log n What if we did a binary search instead of looking through the entire list every single time? Well, this requires that the list be sorted. What if we tried, actually, what if we tried a three-pointer approach instead? If we delete this intersection here, you would have a left, which would be the leftmost index, a right, and a middle. But this would require that nums be sorted. So once we sort it, we'd have n log n. And then for every index, which would start at 1, we could pretty much calculate the closest we can get for this number. And this should be n squared. So hopefully it works. Right is always going to be equal to 0. And right is always going to be equal to nums.length minus 1. And our index is always going to go up to nums.length minus 1. And we're pretty much going to say, while left is less than I, which is really center, but we'll just leave it as I, and I is less than right, then we want to keep playing around with this, right? So we'll have a sum which is equal to num sub left plus num sub I plus num sub right. And then we'll say if the math dot absolute value of sum of target minus sum is less than the math dot. Now we're checking the distance between sum and our closest sum. Target minus closest sum. Then we'll say closest sum equals sum. Now here's where we'll actually be doing the pointer movement. We know we'll never actually reach sum based on the problem statement. So we'll just say if sum is less than target. If the sum is less than target, right, it means we need to increase it by the smallest amount we can, which would be left plus equal 1. Else, right, we want to move right down 1. And I have a good feeling about this one. Oh my god. Oh my god. Okay, we might be a god beast. No way. So yeah, I think this would be n squared time. I actually can't believe... No, it wouldn't be n squared. What am I saying? It'd be n log n to sort. But we're dominated by n squared. So maybe it would just be n squared. N log n takes less time than n squared. Nice. Okay, that's a feel strong, man. So we'll take that. So yeah, I think we'll stop there for today.